16, and 17. Items number 6 and 7 were pulled for a little later in the agenda. At this time, I'd like for us to go ahead and move to our 30-minute citizens comment period. City Council welcomes written and oral comments from citizens at regular meetings. Citizens during the citizens comment period on a topic listed on the agenda, including a public hearing topic, they cannot speak again on the public hearing item. Inquiries from speakers about matters not listed on the agenda will either be directed to the staff or placed on a future agenda for council to consider. And we have one citizen that has signed up to speak this evening, and we'll start with Lisa Marie Copletta.
Where is everybody? But suddenly we win an election and we're not civically engaged. The weather today reminds me of San Marcos politics post-election time. We had thunderstorms and cool temperatures, and then suddenly at 2:11, the sunshine broke, and the birds were chirping louder than they've ever chirped before in the historic district. It's a beautiful day in San Marcos with the sun shining, and actually I want to take a selfie. I'm so pumped about how wonderful we have this wonderful new city council. It's like I've been waiting for this day for 26 years. And so I want to talk about a couple of suggestions and then move on to the mold issue. The first suggestion I wanted to offer is a smart meter opt-out program. I know they have one in the city of Austin, and everything City of Austin does, we do. So perhaps you guys can place that on the agenda item. According to the PBS NewsHour, July 20th in 2012, some 30,000 customers went for the opt-out program, and that's old data. So if you look at 2015, I'm sure there's a bajillion of them that opted out. Some of you guys may disagree with the science. I physically felt tingling in my arms, in my wrists when I first moved back to San Marcos after you guys had installed the smart meters. I'm one of those chemically sensitive populations that can feel it frying me like a chicken pot pie. So I'm asking you that you adopt the viable model. It's a no-brainer. Actually, it is a brainer because it causes brain damage. So now we have a majority. I'm kindly asking one of you or two of you to put this on the city council. The second idea I have is for grants for local filmmakers and possibly a public access TV, just like Austin. We've got lots of people who are doing documentaries. We've got video bloggers. You guys give lots of money to the Greater Partnership San Marcos. Why not some of the cool kids here in town? The last thing I want to talk about is the flood, because most poor girl get pissed if I don't bring it up. The first thing I want to say is we might as well put a picture of a mold spore on the city seal if we don't get the mold under control, y'all. I'm saying we need to start tagging these apartments that get flooded. Because one student will move out, they'll cut a hole, and then the next unsuspecting victim comes in. And I'm one of those 1% of the population where literally I walk into a building and in 30 seconds my face breaks out in hive. I'm like a little canary in a mold mine. And I mean, seriously, I could walk into some of these places in 30 seconds, tell you if it's got Staphylococcus, Aspergillus, and I'm also quite well versed in interpreting that data. I'd love to see some air quality reports. I mean, if anything, Capes Camp people over there, they should be watching down those gunky sidewalks. Those kids are walking around with their pooches. They jump in bed, and there's this disgusting flood water. I had to bleach my boots after I was shooting those blog reports. The other thing I'd like to see y'all do, I sent y'all an email with some viable models of California where they actually have an anti-mold and mildew ordinance, and that this is a flood zone. So that might be something y'all would want to do. And then finally, my suggestion is to go through the tenants council, through the neighborhood commission meeting, and then y'all formulate a tenants council. God bless San Marcos.
Thank you. That'll end our citizens comment period for this evening. We'll go ahead and move then to item number 3.
Receive a staff presentation and update regarding the 2015 All Saints Weekend flood and provide direction to staff.
I believe Mr. Bell and Mr. Cobb may be. Okay, Mr. Bell. Good evening, Mr. Bell.
Good evening. Kenneth Bell, City Emergency Management Coordinator. To start off with the update, last night, thankfully, came out all right. A lot of the United States ended up with tornadoes and a lot of bad weather. It skipped us, thank goodness. We are expecting a lot more of this throughout the year with the Nino that's here. But to give a report on the Saints Day where we're at now, all the repairs that we reported are underway or complete, are almost complete. We still have generators and that sort of thing are all the essential services are back online. We have some non-essential but still important city infrastructure pieces that are being worked on as we speak. I suspect most of that's going to be completed in the next 2 weeks. Debris management, as it's been working throughout this project, has moved a little bit quicker than what you've probably seen with the dumpster movement, mainly because we were using a contractor group that was here from the Memorial Day flood. It was quite easy to get re-engaged with a contract with those folks and get that moving pretty quick. The FEMA group will be here Thursday, to start infrastructure evaluations. There is no declaration, and I do not know if one is going to be forthcoming. However, we did have FEMA representatives and state representatives come down Thursday last week, and it'll be Thursday this week. Last week for domestic damage assessments. This week for infrastructure and city damage. We're on the bubble, essentially, is what I'm understanding from at the state level, whether we're going to be getting a declaration out of this last event. It has to be attributed to a continuous event with no more than 72-hour separation between rainstorms. So the rainstorm that happened here and one that happened in another part of Texas, if they can't link them together in a 72-hour period, it won't be considered the same event, so the damages won't collide together and give us that magic number that we're searching for. The magic number in Texas is over $34 million or 800 residential destroyed homes. Right now in Hays County, we're at 83 destroyed homes out of this last event countywide. That's why it's good for us to go in with those folks instead of trying to stair-step numbers. Volunteer efforts are underway. In fact, they're kind of dialing down as of today. One of the county volunteer resource centers shut down, so the only one that's going to be open will be the Dunbar Center, located at 801 West MLK. The phone number there is 512-677-9701. That'll be open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 3. And as volunteerism ebbs and flows, we might be shutting down the Saturdays, but for the next foreseeable couple of weeks, we're going to leave it open. Obviously, Thanksgiving week, it'll be shut down. Or Thanksgiving through the weekend, I should say. We still have AmeriCorps folks here in town helping with those volunteer efforts. And as of last week, a couple of hundred folks that were on the ground in the CM Allen Homes and Blanco area working on specific projects.
Ken, can you verify the hours for the Dunbar for VRC? I was wondering, we have it posted as closing at 4:30.
Correct. It is up until, I believe, starting tomorrow is when they're going to change to the 3 o'clock hour, and that should be all adjusted when that happens. They're having a meeting tomorrow at 2 o'clock, and I believe that's what's going to happen. I can guarantee the 3 o'clock. That's where I'm at. As it stands now, we're still working towards the hazard mitigation grant. That grant is due December 15th. There's been some new rules and regulations that have come down the pipe. We're still going to make the application. Again, that gives us and that's the way we left it with the council, is so we can come back if we need to make adjustments with the use of those funds for raising rather than buying. There's been some changes that might be worthy of discussion at a policy level to make decisions at y'all's point. And that's pretty much what I have for a report.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Bell. Questions at this time for Mr. Bell? Councilwoman Pruitt?
Would you repeat the last thing you said, that the flood mitigation grant that we are going to be applying for, you said that now?
There's been changes at the federal level with the acceptance of some of those funds for certain uses. So if we do buyouts or extended liabilities, may be more than the council may be willing to entertain. I don't know the detail. Essentially, what it boils down to is, even though you do a buyout, if they still can't find a place to live after that point, we may be responsible in perpetuity. It sounds like it's kind of a strange law. I haven't read it. I just was informed about it today. We're evaluating that, but we're going to make the application either way, and y'all will have an opportunity to evaluate those outcomes and responsibilities and find out whether we're going to proceed with that use of the funds or maybe doing raising instead or some other use of dollars.
So I was under the understanding that raising would be a totally separate grant, and that there was no grant funding available for us to even apply for something like that this time. Is that correct?
Yeah, raising is available, but
Okay.
its use, we were guaranteed a buyout dollars is what the bottom line was from the state. And I say guaranteed, I use the term loosely. We've been assured if we applied for that sort of use, we would get it. The rest of the uses, we were in competition with everybody else in Texas.
Okay.
That's what
But we're going to now go ahead and
We're gonna-
proceed with.
we're going to
with-
proceed.
Okay.
At y'all's, by direction from council, my last direction is proceed with the grant. So we're going to do that. The beauty is we can adjust as we go down the line. What y'all gave a resolution for was just to authorize the city manager to sign off on the application, so we can just move forward.
Okay.
So it still comes back to you folks for policy decisions.
But that would have to come back to us
Yes.
for
Correct.
the next grant application as well.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Grigson? That was your question. Okay. Mr. Tomites?
So, two things I wanted to make sure we clarify, because you just said something that I heard.
Mm-hmm.
You used the word buyout and guaranteed.
Correct.
And I think the very limited conversations that, I mean, first off, the council, I think it's important to say, we haven't had an opportunity
Correct.
to actually
Right.
discuss that as a body. I know there have been some meetings with our federal legislative lobbyists people, and our legislative consultants are about various issues, and that came up. But I didn't want to leave the impression, I think, and I don't think you meant it that way, that if we apply for buyout dollars, we automatically get it, and we automatically get everything we need. That's not what you said, right?
No, not at all. What I'm getting at is we have a better opportunity to garner the funds if we use it for a specific purpose, which is buyouts. That is not what our direction has been given. There's been no policy decision made by the city, as much as I hear about what we're going to might have, should have do.
Right.
We don't even know how much money's involved at this point. I mean, we're so far back in the weeds on those types of decisions without the knowledge of or having that information available.
Okay, so I wanted to clarify that, and also just, I think, clarify that certainly all those types of issues are front and center on everyone's mind, and I know with the city staff as well, and that because there's so many unknowns from the federal aspect of our partnership with the federal government, and we're going to Washington, and we'll probably learn more here in the next few months. But that as of right now, all options are being
On the table.
on the table and being considered, but there's just not enough. You have to have all those answers. I think, Ken, you've taught us this, is make sure you have the right answer. You have the answers before you start.
Shoot. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's what we want to do.
Correct.
So I think that's where we're at exactly right now. Unless there's any.
Now, I'll just add to that. I think as Mr. Tomites is sharing, the documentation that we've done for both events, I think has been exceptional in being able to ensure that we have all the answers necessary to be able to provide to apply for whatever resources we may need for the future. I know several of us had an opportunity to at least have a brief conversation with Congressman Doggett during the Veterans Day events, and that was one of the issues that he shared with us, that in October of 2013, a portion of his jurisdiction was also significantly impacted by the Halloween floods in southeast Travis County. And to this day, they are still awaiting that process of being able to find out if they're going to be able to secure funds for potential buyout. And so he was sharing that with us just to at least have a clear understanding of the process and how lengthy that process can be, but how important having all of your information and having all of your documentation is to that process. And so, as Mr. Tomites also shared, I know Normandy Group was in touch with, I know they reached out to me today, to Christy Wyatt earlier today, and trying to make those plans. Their resource to us and working with FEMA is at the top of the list right now. They were in town, I guess, a week and a half ago, or last week, beginning of last week,
Yes, sir.
to speak with us, and I think we spent probably about, at least more than half of our time that we had with them specifically speaking about the resources available and how they can be a resource to us and being able to access those federal assets and being able to get through a lengthy process. So I'm happy to hear that we have those relationships in line with us and that they understand what our needs are. I'm going to come back to Mr. Griggs, and then I'll come back in this direction. Mr. Griggs.
Yeah, Mr. Bell, the question I have is that we don't know the difference between the amount of money that we might be able to access for the raising issue versus the buyout issue.
That's correct.
So how do we know, how would you suggest we determine which course of action we take?
First, we apply, and one of the things I left out, we're not going into this with anybody going blind, going into this operation. The folks that we are looking at in these particular areas have to give letters of participation. They will have to want to be participatory for us to get better scoring points, essentially for the better dollars. So I've already visited with most of the folks in one of the areas in question. I don't think that's going to be a problem getting those certifications, but nobody knows the answer. Again, we're in competition.
Right.
Our competition ebbs and flows with what it is we're trying to do in comparison to what they're trying to do. For example, if Houston wants to build storm shelters for tornadoes, we're going to win over that based on our economic income, the damages that we have sustained in this particular event.
So the more consensus we get from the process, from those impacted, the better chances we have of accessing dollars.
Correct.
Okay.
And just so I'm clear, you mentioned the term our competition. Now, when we are looking at other communities that have been impacted that are also working towards accessing these same federal dollars, is our competition municipal or is it county? Both. Okay. That's
Anybody
something
who's
as well.
affected by the floods, Memorial Day floods, are what we're working on now. If we get another declaration out of the All Saints flood, that's a whole other conversation where we get to apply again, and there's more dollars that are funded. If you recall, back in May or June, whenever all this started up, I alluded to the fact that there are grants I don't even know the name of yet because they haven't been established by Congress yet.
Right.
And it would be November, December before that starts happening, and that's what's. This one's already in the queue, but there are more still coming. I don't know the name. I don't know what they're. But when they come up, we get notified and we can apply.
And I think when Secretary Castro was here, I know Councilwoman Pruitt had a conversation with him about resources that are currently available, and he shared a handful. And then our consultants with the Normandy Group said that there are more. It's just a matter of identifying those resources and then determining which ones we're going to be eligible for and can compete for. So there are other options to every stone that we can potentially turn.
Right.
And I think that was one of their comments to us as well during last week of figuring out what those resources and where they are and where we have relationships currently to be able to go and try to access those resources. Any questions on this side of the dais at this time? Any other questions at all? Mr. Bell, thank you very much for your update. Appreciate it. Okay. We'll go ahead and move forward then back to our consent agenda, and we'll start with item number 6.
Consider approval of ordinance 2015-49 on the second of 2 readings.